Good morning. Our reading today comes from John chapter 21. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he showed himself in this way. There together with Simon Peter, Thomas, called Didymus, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went right out and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, do you have something to eat?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net to the right side of the boat, and you will find." So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. So the disciple who Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. And the other disciples came in a small boat, or a sloop, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a fire of coals there with fish on it and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went up and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and eat." And none of the disciples were bold enough to even ask, "Who are you?" having seen it was the Lord. Therefore, Jesus comes and takes the bread and gives to them, and the same with the fish. This is now the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had eaten, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Shepherd my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." Let us pray God for his word and his wisdom.
Always that reminder, always that if we sit still long enough, right? I mean, that's the hope that, when you remind us of these things, that if we can sit still and be still long enough to know and hear that God is with us, that we are with God, that God gives us peace. God gives us assurance. I don't know, the world swirls around. There's so many things going on, and it's easy to get distracted and then forget or just relinquish or feel like walking away from the whole thing because it's really hard. It's really hard. But I feel like that's what happened to the disciples after Jesus' death. And if you'll just bear with me a little bit, I think that what I'd like to do today is just do a little bit of catching up. Today is the last sermon that we're going to be doing in our Eastertide, even though the church year really kind of extends Eastertide. Next week we start a new series, so I just want to do some catching up about where we've been and how we got here. So back to the disciples, right? They spent so much time with Jesus. More than anybody, 3 years, right? Just of straight ministry. And despite all that time with Jesus, learning about God, focusing on God, allowing God to move and minister through them, it seems like for the disciples, once Jesus was killed and disappeared, God disappeared with him. It's worth thinking about. It had been a long road from Palm Sunday ride into Jerusalem when all of our hopes were pinned on Jesus, the Christ, the anointed, the true King. The sound of liberation filled the air. Hosanna! Here is our new King. A direct challenge to the empire, and boy, are we in. But once they got into the city, this challenge turned to the religious community who were brought and who had bought into the ways of the empire. He turned the tables on the money changers in the temple, defying all of the commercialism and for-profit practices. He cursed the fig tree as an indictment of the corrupt temple system. He was prophesying destruction of that temple. He was debating hard-line mainstream theology. But then he let that woman waste all of that expensive oil on him instead of selling it and getting the money to feed the poor. It didn't make sense. Where was the overthrow? And that supper, that last supper, it would become to known, the supper they had shared so many times before. And here's the disciples already questioning Jesus' plan for a revolution, at least the revolution that they had in mind, sat at that table, and what did Jesus do? He washed their feet. Then more dire predictions. One of you will deny me. One of you will betray me. All of you will abandon me. As if they weren't confused before. Of course, afterward, Jesus brought them back around at the end of the supper with a unifying ceremony. We now call it communion, but this ceremony for them, bread, wine, body, blood, eat, drink, taste, swallow, sing, pray, remember. This is who we are. This is our mission. Feed, share, care, restore, heal, lead, teach, disciple. You are loved no matter what. Love no matter what. We are one with all things. That's the revolution you seek, and it's within you. And you know what? For a moment, it all seemed possible again. But then the garden, the kiss, the soldiers, the swords, they came to take him, and he did nothing except heal a soldier and call his betrayer friend. He was silent through the shouts and the trial of crucify him, endured the beatings and the mockings, and from the cross they nailed him to, offered paradise to one and forgiveness to all. It is finished. When the news broke for the disciples that the tomb was empty and his body was stolen, the lie, no one was even surprised. Of course they took it. But then they saw him. They touched him. They felt his breath. They received his peace for a moment. They watched one of their own move from doubt to faith for a while. Even when they saw him coming toward them on the mountain, they still wavered. They doubted. I'm so glad we have their witness, because we can have any number of Jesus moments where we laugh and cry and profess and worship, and we can swear that we saw and felt and touched Jesus, the anointed himself. And the next day, the very next hour, we can question, was that Christ at all? What really happened? We can replay it in our minds. We can journal it. We can talk about it. We can pray about it. We can study it. We can analyze it. But what was that really? I'm so unsure. Again, I can't think about it anymore. I need to go. I need to do something normal. At least that's how it was for Peter. That was his remedy. Look, you guys can sit here all you want, but I'm out. I'm going fishing. And a couple of them said, yep, we're going to go with you. And they off and went fishing. Normal. Let's just get back to where we were. Of course, you can't really do that, right? They caught nothing. They caught nothing. I get that too, because the thing is, once you've walked with Christ, there actually is no going back to normal. When you've experienced life in God, everything else comes up empty. Nothing else satisfies. Peter and the disciples had been introduced to a new way of living through the living, loving life of Jesus, and they were changed forever. And then someone, Jesus, tells them to cast their nets on the right side. Maybe that's all it took. Maybe a net full of fish is all it took for them to let them know that it was Jesus on the shore. I mean, that's what we usually look for, right? To affirm that what we're witnessing is indeed from God. We want a win. We want a gift. We want a reward. We want a positive vibe. No more struggle. We feel good again, and our nets are full, and they're so full, it must be Christ. And like Peter, we want to jump off that boat, both feet in again to that living water. Saturate my soul, Jesus, I run to you. But we are who we are. Peter is Peter. So much as we may have wanted to dive right into that sea, Peter feels that he needs to do something else to prepare himself for this meeting with the risen Christ, who he knows is the risen Christ on the shore. He's naked, after all. How come everybody giggles when I say the word naked? Naked, naked. Now look, maybe he's hot, right? From the boat. From the boat. From the sun. But I think there's a little bit more here, right? About the fact that during this age, one's clothing, especially one's outer cloak, was a means of identity. In the New Testament, an outer garment, as a rule, is mentioned solely in reference to the wearer's allegiance and associations. So removing one's outer garment represents acting of one's own consternation, out of one's anxiety or depression or panic. So Peter is acting out of his own inner feelings of panic, and symbolically, he had unaffiliated himself with the group, with the movement. And while there's something tragic about that realization, I know there is for me, there's also something inherently human in his actions. He had just a few days earlier, denied his affiliation with Jesus, not just once, but 3 times. And we get that. Disillusionment, fear, abandonment, it can do a number on a person. Or am I the only one? Now mix that in with threats from the empire, rumors stirred up with doubt and seasoned with grief. I got to tell you, Peter was suffering. We feel for him, or I feel for him. I relate to him. Because we all do from time to time, if we're honest. We live in an age of disillusionment, of fear, abandonment. We live under an empire of threats and rumors and doubt. And the grief, it's pervasive. And it can swallow you whole. And I think I'm not the only one that just sometimes it feels like it's easier to just walk away from everything, hang up my gone fishing sign on the front door, and I'm done. I have no solid answer. There is no theology out there that says I have the exact right theology, although people claim to. But I'm not going to give you that. I have no solid answer as to why Peter felt the need to approach Jesus with his identity intact. He needed to put that robe back on. And I'd love to muse about it with you all later if you want to. But whatever his motivation, whether he wanted to show Jesus that he was still all in, or pretend he'd never left, or even not let Jesus see him in a vulnerable state, that's a big one. Once he reached the shore, none of it mattered. All that met Peter and the other disciples from Jesus was an invitation. Come, eat. I have fish. Actually, the word for fish here means something prepared much earlier, seasoned and presented as part of a larger meal, seasoned especially and prepared ahead of time for you. It's very different from the word fish that's used when the disciples caught. That word means fresh fish. But the fish Jesus has been prepared long ago. Bring what you've got, Jesus says. Come as you are. Bring your whole, fresh, raw, vulnerable, doubting, suffering selves. Bring it all. Bring all of you and all of it to my table and taste what I've prepared for you. And I'll bless the bread, and I'll break it, and I'll share it with you. Come, dine, body, blood, eat, drink, taste, swallow, sing, pray. Remember, this is who we are. This is the mission. Feed, share, care, restore, heal, lead, teach, disciple. You are loved no matter what. Love no matter what. We are one with all things. That's the revolution you seek. And it's within you. And after they had eaten, Jesus helps Peter retract his threefold denial with a threefold affirmation. Peter, do you love me? Do you agape me? Do you move toward me? Will you merge toward me? Will you join me? Will you connect with me? Is all agape. Yes, I will, Lord. Feed my lambs, the young, the lonely, the vulnerable. Peter, do you agape me? Yes. Tend, shepherd, lead my sheep. Lead the masses, the wholly absorbed and overwhelmed by the herd who don't know what they believe or which way to turn or what to follow. Peter, do you love? Do you want to show a physical expression of the love you have toward me? Now, Peter is hurt, at least in our translation it says Peter is hurt. The actual word here is sorrowful. Peter is sorrowful. Perhaps not in the sense of an apology, but perhaps in catching up on his own actions over recent events. Maybe the third time Jesus asked reminded him of his own turning away. Maybe it's why Peter responds, Lord, you know everything. You know my feelings. You know that my spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak. You know that I do not the thing that I want to do, but the very thing that I don't do, I do. I believe, Lord, help my unbelief. You know that I love you. And Jesus does know. Jesus believes more in Peter more than Jesus believes more in Peter than Peter believes in himself and has from the beginning. Jesus chose Peter not despite his shortcomings, but because of them, because of who he was, because they are a part of what makes Peter, Peter, and it would make Peter unique and perfect for what he's called to. And Jesus, does he relinquish the call? No. Jesus doubled down on the call now. Feed my sheep, Peter. Feed my sheep. Them and them and them. Invite them to your home. Welcome them to your table. Bless and break bread together. Call the betrayer friend. Heal the wounded enemy. Forgive even from the cross. Live in me and live through me. There is nowhere you can go that I haven't prepared a place for you to come and eat, drink, taste, swallow, sing, pray, remember. This is who we are. This is our mission. Feed, share, care, restore, heal, lead, teach, and love. Disciple, you are loved no matter what. Love no matter what. We are one with all things. That's the revolution you seek, and it's within you.